Here's today's First Word Daily Devotion.
We're at January the 16th, and by this point, as we're reading the biblical narrative, we should be seeing some repeated patterns. And those repeated patterns are important because what they allow us to do is they allow us to understand God's consistency, God's never-changingness, His constant. They allow us to understand that God has a story to tell. And in that story, He is telling the story of the way that He will redeem the world. And so remember, Abraham received a promise. And in that promise, he had a son, and his son's name was Isaac. And then Isaac had two sons, Jacob and Esau. And of course, Jacob was one who deceived his brother Esau. Jacob was the one who stole the birthright. Jacob was the one who took advantage of his brother Esau. But we're going to see the story of Jacob come into view here because Jacob is the one who received the blessing. Look at verse 8 of Genesis 28. So when Esau saw that the Canaanite, and it's important for us to even emphasize that, we're going to see a lot of different perspectives today. Esau is seeing, Jacob is seeing. And as we read over to our Matthew passage today, we're going to see Jesus seeing. And what we need to understand is the perspective that God gives in the text. Look at what happens here. When Esau saw that the Canaanite women did not please Isaac his father, Esau went to Ishmael and took as his wife, beside the wives he had, Mahlah, the daughter of Ishmael, Abraham's son, the sister of Naboth. So here is Esau's reaction. Esau is indignant to the fact that his brother has taken advantage of him. And then look what happens here. Jacob left Beersheba and went toward Haran, and he came to a certain place and stayed there the night because the sun had set. Taking one of the stones of the place, he put it under his head and lay down in that place to sleep. And he dreamed, and behold, there was a ladder set up on the earth, and the top of it reached to heaven. And behold, angels of God were ascending and descending on it. And behold, the Lord stood above it and said, I am the Lord, the God of Abraham your father, and the God of Isaac. And now look at what God says. The land on which you lie I will give to you and to your offspring. Your offspring shall be like the dust of the earth. You shall spread abroad to the west, to the east, the north, the south, and in you and your offspring shall all the families of the earth be blessed. And so here we have the same pattern repeated, the same promise coming down. And what does the promise involve? The promise involves an offspring and a land. And then look at verse 15. This is the most important verse. Behold, God says, I am with you, and I will keep you wherever you go, and will bring you back to this land, for I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised. And then look at what Jacob does. We're going to see this at the end of the Jacob narrative about Genesis 35. He called the name of that place Bethel. And of course, then we see this instance where Jacob goes and meets his uncle Laban, and he takes two wives, Rachel and her sister Leah, for a wife. And of course, we see the irony of this is that Jacob, for the first time, is deceived. We opened the chapter with him deceiving, or we opened yesterday with him deceiving his brother, and then receiving a reaction of his brother, the reaction of his brother being deceived. And here we see how he responded. He didn't respond very well. So he is in love, though, with Rachel. Jacob served, verse 20, 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed to him but a week because of the love that he had for her. But look at what happens here. Jacob went into Rachel also. He loved Rachel more than Leah and served Laban for another 7 years. And here we have the perspective of the Lord. When the Lord saw. So we've been looking the whole time at Jacob's reaction, but here's what matters. When the Lord saw that Leah was hated he opened her womb. Rachel was barren. And then look at the last of our reading in the Old Testament before Matthew. We have a special son that's going to come up later, a son of Jacob and Leah, Judah. And then she ceased bearing. And then look at Jesus as he, Matthew chapter 9, our reading today, takes us there. Look at verse 36, and just to point this out. When he saw the crowds, he had compassion for them because they were harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. Then he said to his disciples, "The harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Therefore pray earnestly to the Lord to the harvest, to send out laborers to his harvest." May we remember what the psalmist reminds us in Psalm 16:11. This Lord who sees, this Lord whose perspective we trust, he makes known to us the path of life. In his presence there is fullness of joy. At his right hand there are pleasures forevermore. So let us do what the Proverbs says and ponder the path of our feet. Then all of our ways will be sure. Don't swerve to the left or to the right. Turn your foot away from evil.